Okay, I was asked a little bit about what brushes I use, so I thought I'd maybe give this a little go and try to share some of the brushes that I like a lot. And I'm not sponsored by anybody, and I am only recommending the kinds that I have found to be enjoyable and that work well for me. These two brushes are called dagger brushes, and I don't know if you can see, but they're curved kind of like this and that, thus the dagger label. I think I paid about $4 per brush, so they're not expensive brushes, and I'm just trying to even see. I don't know for sure whether they're actual sable or a natural hairbrush, or whether they're actually a plastic brush, but they have worked really, really well. And they are made by, I'm just going to pick this up so that you can see, Royal Langnickel. And I don't remember, I'm guessing I maybe picked it up from YouTube, but I don't remember. These brushes kind of became a game changer for me. My brushes that I was using prior to getting these they're red sable brushes. They're made by Kolensky, which I believe is a European brand, and they are sable brushes, so that is a natural tip on these brushes. They work very well. The thing that I found, it came in, I bought a set of 5, and I did buy these on the from Amazon. It looks like I only have, oh no, wait, this. Okay, so these are the 5 that I purchased in my set of 5, and I've had them for many years now. You can see they're still in quite good shape. This particular one, the brushes were used a lot, and perhaps one time maybe I didn't clean it well or didn't store it well, and it tends to want to fan out, and even when you get it wet, it still just wants to fan out. The point that I was unhappy with these brushes came when, as you can see, not one of them comes to a real point. Even when these little hairs are together, they're all about kind of cut bluntly so that there isn't a point there. Now this little one does have a point, and it actually does work well still. But when I heard about these dagger brushes, I kind of converted over to these, and I just got to tell you that I actually use these all the time. I only for the little brush do I go back to those other Kolensky brushes. While I've been using these, then I heard of another brush, and I showed it yesterday in my video, and I don't remember what the name is called, but I don't know if you can see or not. I'm hoping the vision on this is, I'm hoping, better than my first film that I did. But they're triangle. See on the end here, they're triangle. And you'll also note they are angled. They are sable brushes, so this is a really, really good hair brush. And I have found that these brushes are like magic. The point that they allow, even though it's a big brush, the point gets just finite. It's just wonderful. This one more so than this one, even though this is the largest one, the point is just wonderful. Now these brushes, I honestly don't remember how I purchased them, but I do have all the literature from when I purchased them, and this is the literature. They're called Rosemary and Company. If I remember right, it's a family-owned business, and they actually make these brushes by hand. And so handmade in England, and used by artists worldwide. So Rosemary and Company is the brand on these. And again, so these 4 brushes, and then I would add this brush to it. I think if you had this many brushes, you would be absolutely set. And these are the ones that I am using all the time. But with that said, let me show you these 2 paint sets, which I use when I'm out. I'll take them with me if I'm going someplace, and I'll even use them at home here too, because they actually are excellent, excellent little paint sets. And each of them come with their own brushes. They're made by Winsor Newton, and this brush, it's a mini brush, so that the handle is a little awkward for me in that I'm not used to how tiny it is, but it's an excellent brush, just excellent brush. So this other paint set that's a little smaller, same colors, same brand, Winsor Newton, it comes with the set, and it's a very fine tipped brush. And this one actually, probably my grandkids used it, and it hasn't been washed, didn't get washed up great, but it will wash out because it's just watercolor. But you can see here that it creates and gets down to a very lovely detailed point. And I could do a whole picture, a card size, not getting bigger in scale than the 5x7 card, with a brush like this, or with a single brush like this one. So that's how good I feel like these brushes are. The thing that I need that these don't provide me is the larger brush for some of the background things that I do. Now, I guess, so when I only have a small brush on hand, then I really do find that I'm kind of wanting a bigger brush to finish out my picture. But with all said and done, you could just use this and you'd be okay with that brush. And these paint sets, they're, like I said, they're made by the same company, and they've been excellent. This one has a little more palette size. This is for water, and that becomes a palette for you. The one thing I did want to mention on this one, and I try to tell my grandkids always, is when they're done, if they can dip their brush in water so that they're cleaning it, and see here, we're getting green paint off of that one, so that one was not cleaned when it was done being used, and that's why it was so stiff. But now that it isn't stiff and it's just wet, it still comes to a fine point. So when they're going back to when you're finished painting, you're gonna get your paint off your brush. It's still moist, and you're gonna try to form it into a point. And that's gonna allow you to put it back in its cover without some of the bristles getting bent backward and becoming a problem for you the next time you paint. So here I've brought it into a point, and it fed easily into its cover. So with these two, the brushes that come in these 2 sets, and these other 2 brushes with either one of those for a small brush or this one for a small brush, I pretty much can do anything with. I told you a little bit about the care of the brush in putting a top back on it. Some brushes come, and I thought yesterday I had in here one. I'm not seeing it today, but sometimes they come in a plastic tubing will come over the tops of the brushes, and I often like to keep those and do the same thing that I did with this smaller set of paints. When I'm done painting, then I'll bring all the bristles to a point and try to form them so that they'll stay together, and then put that plastic over it. Now, so that brings us to how to care for the brushes. Easy care. Watercolor that's one of the reasons that it's that I enjoy it. Originally, I'm a oil painter, and then I was a mother, and it just took too much time for cleanup. And then when you had to start up again, it was just too much. The drying time, you had to keep it away from little hands, and the house smelled like the oil paints, which I love that smell, but it's not the smell that every house should smell like. And so I converted over to watercolor, and the cleanup is the converter. I mean, you night and day cleaning up from watercolor versus cleaning up from oil. So you're going to get, like I did with the small brush, you're going to just get your brush wet, get all the color out of it by dabbing on something, cloth or paper towel, and then you're going to, while it's still kind of wet, bring your bristles up like this, and then you're going to store it this way. Sometimes storing it this way is okay if you're coming back to it, but storing it this way is never okay. And quite obviously, that would absolutely destroy your brushes in a very short period of time. So store this way or this way, and then even allow them, they don't have to be completely dry when you're putting them down like this, but they certainly don't even have to be dry at all when you're putting them like this to be stored and used. I use them so frequently that mine are rarely like this for more than 24 hours. See, something else came to my mind, but I'm not recalling it right now. But so those are the brushes that I have used. And again, I do want to address that these brushes in these paint sets, for the price of these paint sets, the brush that comes with them is a fabulous brush. You couldn't do better by having to buy a brush individually. And you would pay a lot more than just how it comes there. So I'm going to have to look at this video and see how it turned out. Oh, there is one other thing that I wanted to share. So we talked about the brushes, and sometimes I'll see people who use their brushes effectively by weighting them at different points, and they know how to bring them back up and make the bristles spread out to create the lines that they're looking for, or the shapes they're looking for. I'm not that good at the use of my brushes and using them to their maximum capacity, because I really don't understand all of that kind of thing, but I do paint with them, and rather than just using them and knowing all about what the shape is that's created by the pressure in using them, I'm not quite there. But one thing that I did want to share, and I'm going to go back to just one of the cards that, well, I had the two cards that I was doing a video on yesterday, is on my paint set, I always have paperweights, because I'm often painting on more than one thing at a time because of the nature and time frame that it takes for the water to dry on the card. And so if I want to keep working, I usually have more than one card or more than one image that I'm painting, so that I can go back and forth as they dry. You can see that the cards don't lay flat for that dry period, and sometimes there's a little more water on a card, and if you haven't sopped it up with your brush, then there's a little more water. So I use paperweights, and I love glass, and so glass paperweights are my go-to things for stabilizing my cards while they're drying. And so I've brought two here just to show you that, I mean, sometimes if a card has a lot of moisture on it and it's needing to dry and I don't want it to run, I will even use two paperweights to help the card and stabilize the card until it dries. So I hope that this video was a little bit informative, and I will try again.